Good evening. All right.
Yes.
Good evening and welcome to the July 11th, 2023 Zoning Board of Appeals regular monthly meeting for the Village of Ossining. This, as we all know, is a public hearing that is quasi-judicial. And as such, I just want to remind you and to remind those in the building and those in person, those that are on Zoom, of the rules for our practice for tonight. So if you are here in the building, we ask that no one speaks in the audience in this room unless you are addressing the board. If you have something to say to each other, we ask that you take it down the hall toward the front door because all sound bounces back into this room and we can hear your conversations. When you come up before the board, you must provide your name and address. Remember, you are addressing the board. You're not speaking to an applicant or their representative. We are still using a hybrid format, and in that regard, we ask that the public will continue to have the opportunity to see and hear the meeting live through Zoom and provide comments during the appropriate time. In order to participate, please do the following. Members of the public attending online via Zoom app may use their raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you would like to make a comment. The feature is located at the bottom of your screen. Those attending via telephone can press *9. The meeting host will see your hand is raised or that you have pressed *9. They will unmute you and they will give you the ability to unmute at the time so that you can speak. Comments can also be mailed during the public hearing to the Village Planning Department at PLAN at villageofossining.org. The meeting will be recorded and a transcript of the meeting will be available at a later date. There are a couple of other ground rules to ensure that our meeting is orderly and that we have a clear recording. So please follow these rules. When you're given access to speak, please state your name and address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit your comments to the matter which is the subject at hand. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off and access denied. To the board members, I will call on you one at a time to speak to avoid everyone speaking at once. And we will use roll call voting for purposes of board motions. This is to ensure that the record is clear. So now we can go on with our meeting, and for the benefit of the record, we are going to do a roll call to kick things off. When your name is called, please indicate that you are present or absent.
How do you indicate your absent?
I don't know, I was just thinking.
Michael Spall.
Present.
Olga Montes. Present. Bob Trial.
Present.
Brian Granoff.
Present.
And Chair Cheatham.
Present.
Thank you.
Absent today is Kyle Aberizik. Also with us today is Maddie Zahach, our Assistant Village Manager, Joseph Agostinelli, our Building Inspector, Jamie Kane is our Board Secretary and she is on Zoom, Linda Whitehead, our Land Use Attorney, and Taryn Ramey, our Assistant Land Use Attorney, is with us today. So let us go to our agenda. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. First on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, approval of the June 13th, 2023 meeting. For all that are present, if you've had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting, may I have a motion to adopt the meeting minutes with any necessary corrections?
So moved, Bob.
Second, Brian.
If I don't know if we have to do a roll call. So if there's no objection to approving the minutes, then by unanimous consent, the meeting minutes for the June 13th, 2023 meeting have been approved. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is new business of the board and ZBA 14-2023, 14 River Court, Timothy Fitzsimmons. Is anyone here to speak on this? On this application? Please come up to the podium if you're in the building.
What'd you do?
And please give us your name and your address.
Timothy Fitzsimmons, 14 Riverview Court, Ossining.
Is there anyone else here with you? Or you're-
Just my wife.
Oh, okay. No, your architect's not here even on the Zoom?
No, he's actually in South America, apparently.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. So tell us why you're here then.
So the house I purchased 2 years ago, there's an existing small deck on the side of the house. Looking at the survey that was done by my surveyor, there's a couple of overlaps with the setbacks on the side of the house. That's one item. And then principally, I would like to actually extend that deck around the front of the property so I could enjoy better the view of the river. In doing so, I would then be also overlapping slightly some of the existing setbacks. It looks like if you zoom in on the back of the property there. Well, make out two different types of shading on the rear of the house. The shading closest to the house will be considered within outside of the 30-foot limit, and the shading beyond that, I guess, would represent the overlap. So I'm looking for a variance. Principally, it's about, I guess, enjoyment, quality of life. Also, having the deck on the back of the house there offers a secondary means of egress from the first floor, where the kitchen is, should there be a kitchen fire or something of that. This will give us a secondary escape route onto the deck, down the stairs at the side of the property.
Zoom in on the existing deck. Right.
So that the existing deck is actually on the side of the house.
Yeah,
So when we're looking at the property and go down to. Right, but the deck he's talking about does not exist. And that is on the back of the house. If you go down to the end deck.
Okay.
So
right
he
there.
wants to put a deck off of the second floor.
Correct.
Okay.
So it would wrap around it.
correct,
So
basically.
It would meet that.
Exactly, the
yeah.
existing deck, it would just,
Okay.
it would be flush with this side of the house on the lower right photograph. So it wouldn't come around this near side of that property, it would just be flush. Run along that rear dimension and then connect with the
So it
existing.
would be over the existing doorway that's there, right?
Yes, correct.
So he requires an area variance for a rear yard setback for the proposed construction of rear yard deck. And a side yard variance, both side yard setbacks for proposed construction of the rear yard deck. Both side yards, according to the zoning worksheet, proposed. The existing condition is 12.33, the proposed is 15.88, which is a 3.1 foot variance. And the rear yard is 34.5 feet, proposed 18 feet, so it's a 12 foot variance that's needed. I don't know if there are other pictures that show beyond the back of the house, because if looking at the property itself, there is
Some,
Mhm.
now the view from.
yeah, that's on the right bottom right hand there would be from the neighbor's driveway looking up.
So there's actually nothing back there.
Hmm.
It's like a drop off, like a hill.
It's
So,
quite a sizable hill.
yeah.
Yeah. Most of that's actually my property. It's a funny
Yes,
lot line.
because it was a cul-de-sac in the way the
Exa-
property.
It's a wet shape.
It's a wet shape.
Yeah.
yes, so-
Yeah, it's quite a odd shape.
So the neighbors actually literally look up the hill towards the new deck. We'll be looking up the hill towards the new deck.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. I don't know how much you'd see from there.
See, yeah, they would
Yeah.
see it.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any. Gotcha.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Mm-mm.
If there are no questions from the board, is there anyone, may I have a motion to open the public hearing? Sorry.
Motion to open the public hearing, Brian.
Seconded, Olga.
If there's no objection to opening the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone else in the audience to speak on this project? If there's no one from the audience to speak on this project, is there anyone on Zoom to speak on this project? If there's no one on Zoom to speak on this project, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, seconded.
If there's no objection to closing the public hearing, the public hearing is now closed by unanimous consent. I believe we can go through the area variance. At this point.
Absolutely. So as the board knows, it must consider 5 factors in determining whether to grant the requested area variances. And so the first factor that the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or be detrimental to nearby properties.
I'm gonna say no. I mean, if I'm looking at these measurements and this drawing correctly, it's not going. That floor area behind that door, right? It's not going over that. You're not going to the edge of your property where it
That's
would
the
pose
edge.
a
It's
danger.
staying back. You go back to the photograph, you'll be able to see the rear courtyard is split into concrete flags. Each one's about 5 feet wide approximately. And we're staying back 1 full flag. So we're 5 feet back basically from the fence line before the hill starts.
Okay. That would be my concern, was that, you know, your project would then cause a danger to anybody below you, but it doesn't look like that would be in. And as far as aesthetics, you're improving your home and matching your neighbor.
Yeah, both sides have decks on that rear side of their properties.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
All right. So the next factor is whether the benefit sought can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variances.
I believe because of the way the shape of the lot is and the configuration of the cul-de-sac, that the lot line itself prohibits them doing too much of anything else. And it is coming off the second story, so I think you
We actually look at that survey. I don't think you could have me from rear yard setback. You wouldn't have that.
you would.
It's very
Mhm.
practical.
Because the existing
Yeah,
house.
You'd have this triangular.
When he has the measurement and 30 feet would almost take you.
Well, you can see the setback line.
Mhm.
Is
to
that
have
right?
one of those
It's
very-
pie shape.
have this
Yeah.
Very small pie shape deck.
Yeah,
That's cute, but,
futuristic, but not in keeping necessarily with the area.
For terrace, it would be a plant stand.
Yeah.
Okay, the third factor is whether the requested area variances are substantial.
I think 12 feet is fairly substantial, but I don't believe it's in this instance, it really I don't think there would be anything else that we could do because of the lot shape and the area that it's in.
And the side yard setback is
Minimal.
Mhm.
The side yard is.
It's appropriate for this configuration.
and it's only for a deck. It's not for
Right.
the
This
house.
was a different neighborhood with houses much closer on either side. That would be maybe a different situation, but
So there are minimal impacts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, the next factor is whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I'm gonna say no. It's only a positive move, not detrimental.
Okay, and the final factor is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
probably bought the house.
Really because of the location. It's probably to the shape of the property and
Yes.
the indication of the existing house.
And this factor is not dispositive in the board's analysis.
Yeah.
So in light of going through the 5 factors, I may have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Olga,
Second, Bob.
Roll call.
Mhm.
Michael Spall,
Aye.
Bob Doraya,
Aye.
Olga Montez,
aye,
Brian Grana,
Aye.
and Chair Cheatham.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your deck.
Enjoy your day.
What do I do now?
And I do want to make it, please note that we have approved it today, but it does take a moment to get all the paperwork done. So, we're, once everything is completed, you will hear back from the building department.
And to define a moment,
It's-
weeks.
We don't meet in August,
Oh, are you available?
but I will be available this
Yeah, okay.
time, so,
Okay, we'll get them done.
okay.
I don't
Right,
think it's fair
great.
to make people wait.
Congratulations.
No.
Thank you very much.
You're very
It
welcome.
was my birthday today, by the way. Thank you very much.
Now let's celebrate.
Did you just say we were all invited for cake?
We know where you live.
Everyone might be great.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to your brother, Michael.
Next on our agenda is ZBA 15-2023, 52 Narragansett Avenue, Babu Van Katesh.
Katesh, yes, he's not here. He's the homeowner. I'm the architect.
Oh, okay. And your name?
Mandana Rezania, 252 South Highland Avenue, Wasening. I have a home office. And you guys don't know me. I used to appear in front of the zoning board before you guys came on board. So nice to meet you all. Joe and I work together. He knows me. Well, the project is homeowner was redoing the front steps. It was in bad shape. And then we are redesigning it, not redesigning it. Basically, it's the same size almost. It's just different material. And so we were told that it doesn't meet the stairs, do not meet the bulk requirement. And it's, I had email exchange with Joe and he said it's the front setback that he's referring to. So the bulk requirement requires 30 feet front setback, and the drawing you see that is some of it, most of it is, the last thread is like, most of it is within that 30 setback. So, if we were to go for a zoning variance, I think the application fee, is cheaper. It's less than 400. So, that would have been, cheaper for the homeowner. But for me, this was like, this doesn't sound right. I practice in Austin and I want to know, really what this type of stairs, how it would affect projects. It's important for even my own practice. So I said, I recommended to the homeowner that I like to pursue it, and they approved that we pursue, requesting for an interpretation of the zoning.
I'm confused.
Yes, okay. Tell me, I explain. Which part?
Let her finish and then I'll.
Go finish. Then we'll talk.
Okay. So the stair, I looked at different sections of the code, zoning code, to see why the stair needs to meet the front setback, and I couldn't come up with a reason why. And I wrote it down, but I can also explain it. Would you like me to go and explain it verbally, or?
You're asking for an interpretation, so I would say yes, so that we all hear what your thought process is.
Yes.
And then, so when we kind of go through this, we can kind of go back and figure out what what we're thinking, and legally, then we can answer your question.
Okay.
Figure out what.
Okay. So first I looked at the definition, section and definitions, and items that are defined as building is like a structure that fences, walls, and the last one, porches. So the porch, and I also looked for a definition for a stair and landing, and I didn't find it. So it's not a porch. So it's not a building. I mean, I try to see if it fits within that building definition, because building has to be with, outside the setback. It has to meet that setback requirement. So it's not a building. That's my conclusion. And the porch, I also looked for the definition of a porch. There was none, so I Googled it. And it basically is roofed entry, small landing with a roof and steps. That's what a lot of photos in Google, that's what it showed, and you see that a lot of houses, that's what they have. So it's not even that, because it doesn't have a roof. And then I looked at the definition for the yard, front yard. It says that it has to be fully open to the sky. So our stair and landing is fully open to the sky. There is no roof. So it meets that definition. And then I looked at the exceptions to the front yard setback. And one item is exceptions are entries and porticos. That is defined also roofed area, unenclosed, completely unenclosed, and it gives a size. And our stair doesn't have a roof again, and is even smaller in size. The landing is smaller in size than what the entry, is, or portico. And also, I again looked up the definition. I couldn't find a definition for porticos and entries. I Googled it, and it didn't. What I saw is not a stair; it's all roofed area. So basically, I can't find anything here in the our zoning that says the stair and landing has to be to meet the setback requirement. Is it clear? Was I clear?
Want me to explain?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask our land use attorney to jump in,
Yes.
but I think the question that I have is, when you started off, you started saying that it was a structure, and I believe that by our code, a structure is anything that is built or constructed. So that includes stairs, porches.
Right. So just to clarify sort of what the application is for some of the newer board members. You're authorized not only to hear applications for variances for relief from the provisions of the code, but also to provide an interpretation on an appeal from an inspection of the building inspector. So here the building inspector has determined that this requires a variance. And the application is for an interpretation, that in fact it does not require a variance because the code does not require that stairs be subject to the front yard setback, front stairs like this. As you know, because we've had many of these applications recently, Joe has consistently read the code to determine that stairs must meet the front yard setbacks. You've had a lot of these applications. You've approved a lot of these applications. A few of the additional definitions that I think are relevant to this discussion, in addition to the ones that the applicant has mentioned. The chair mentioned the definition of structure, which is that which is built or constructed. So the stairs are definitely a structure. The definition of setback in the code is the distance between a structure and a lot line. And I think that's what Joe is relying on, that this is a structure. So the setback is the distance between the structure or the lot line. In addition, it doesn't just say open to the sky, it says unoccupied ground area. So this is actually occupied ground area. It's occupied by stairs. It's open to the sky, but it is occupied. So I think that's, and Joe can certainly express his position to you as well, but the determination for you as the board members to make is, do you agree with Joe's interpretation that front stairs do require, have to meet the front yard setback and therefore it would require a variance? Or do you agree with the applicant that that's not the proper interpretation and application of the code, and in fact the stairs should not require a variance, are not required to meet the front yard setback?
So
Can I ask that question? Time to ask questions.
Go ahead.
This is already existing. Yes or no?
rebuilt, it's being rebuilt.
It was stopped.
It was.
The house was existing, yeah.
Is this something that's already done?
No, it's not done. No, it's not done.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in that case, it seems to me that the many precedents that of decisions this board has made have determined that our building department says that a structure is something that's built and the setback is from the property line to the first thing that's a structure. So I don't think there's a question here about whether or not this in fact requires a variance. I'm wondering why you wouldn't just apply for a variance.
Because I still not convinced, if I may, a structure, is there a definition for a structure? I mean, building is a structure.
We were saying, the
That which
structure-
There is a
built or
definition, there is a-
constructed.
Yes.
Anything that is built or constructed.
Okay, here under building, it says any structure used or intended for supporting or sheltering any use or occupancy.
But that's different than
That's
the
different.
definition of structure.
Yeah,
Right.
that's.
There is a definition of structure, and it says that which is built or
I
constructed.
believe maybe what you're referring to is the definition for building.
Is building, right?
Okay, I don't have the code in front of me.
I'm reading it to you.
Yes,
exactly.
no, I believe that.
Right.
In terms
Yeah,
of the
so-
setback, it says that the structure that's with, do you
So
have
the
it?
definition of
The
setback
setbacks is-
reads the distance between a structure
Sure.
and a lot line. Or where specified in this chapter, another reference point or line such as curb line. The definition of structure is
Mm.
that which is built or constructed.
Okay,
So I,
okay.
and Linda, correct me because I don't have it in front of me, but I believe her definitions came out of subsection 270. And then,
270 in the definition.
They're all in the, as are these, they're all in the definitions.
right. But
I
So she was
didn't,
in the right place, she just didn't look at all the definitions.
I didn't look at the structure.
So the definitions were in 270.
Also, we keep in mind in section 270-27 gives you exemptions.
Sections,
In
right,
the exemptions, there are things like cantilever roof up to a certain amount,
right.
chimneys. And I
Yes.
believe portico,
Portico,
which
mhm.
is defined, actually, the portico shows you, it actually tells you can only have it by 8 feet wide by 4 feet in depth. And that's a roof structure as opposed to a staircase, but they, in the exemption, staircase is not added in there.
Right.
So it doesn't allow an exemption of staircase.
One more thing, if that's the case, exemptions, I mean, entries and porticos, those are the structures. So how come that is exempt? And it has a roof and is larger than what we have? That I
That's
cannot
the way the
understand.
code's written.
That's the way
So
we
it's
don't-
wrong there.
Always
It's
say we agree
wrong.
with everything that's in the
So
code,
it's
but
wrong. The zoning, this is
But I can,
wrong.
but I can say that, you know, we've been sitting here for most of us a better part of a year. And we've done a number
I know, but
of staircases. And again, one of the things that we do look at is the fact that it is a staircase. But if it's within the lot line, or if there is an issue with where the setbacks are, we still have to look at that. It does, you know, it comes to us to be able to look at it to determine if there's anything else that can be done, if there's, you know, a way to not do that. But we do understand that the lot sizes in the village of Ossining, most of them are going to come with a staircase, and most of them are going to come with a staircase that are going to fall out, you know, within the setbacks. We understand that.
so if I put
But-
a roof over it, then it's exempt.
No,
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 because it's
then-
still a structure and it's
But it's
still a
exemption,
structure.
it's an
not-
exemption,
not-
no.
No, but that's not an exemption.
That's not a covered
That's-
stair is not.
No, a
Portico
landing
would
and a
be
stair.
just a roof structure with columns without. essentially
Without
a
anything
staircase.
underneath it, right? So,
It's,
Just be an inch
how-
vertical, and they only allow you to go 4 feet. 4 feet extended into the front yard and only like 8 feet in width.
but do we have any portico that doesn't have a step? All the houses, they have a steps going to a portico, so.
To the portico,
Yeah.
but the stairs, the portico is not generally the covered area over the stairs. It's generally just a
Yes,
covered area
the
so
yeah,
it's
But-
over a landing.
I think
Thanks.
that if-
but I'm gonna say it this way. The portico may be exempt from the.
So that doesn't
But
make
the
sense.
stairs-
Tell
but-
me, once you're
but-
convinced
but
that,
I
how
have
could
to
that be
argue with you.
convinced?
Because if the stairs leading up to the portico fall within the setback line, you still would be before us because the stairs themselves would be a structure that would be
And not every portico requires.
but stairs, right?
They
Yeah, so have
do.
a Portico where you just walk a walkway to it and you have a portico entry with no staircase.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't say anymore, but something is wrong here. This is not in, it's, I mean, so then this entry and portico
your
should be
problem is-
removed.
If,
Because-
if the problem is with the way the
Yeah.
code is written,
Yeah, it's,
that should go to the Board of Trustees. This
Right,
board
yeah,
can't
that's
change the
right.
Yeah.
code.
You can't
All
change
this
them.
board can do is apply or interpret or grant variances from the code as written.
you see my point. I mean, I don't want to be unreasonable, but there is something, doesn't jive, doesn't just make sense. Something is missing here.
What's your client hire you to do that?
Well, just to help him to be able to build the stair landing.
But that doesn't include you from applying for variance for the setback, and the fact that the board has had a lot of these applications, it's something that they've dealt right. Oh, right, yes, and if you do research, in most cases, I'm not saying in every case that you would be, but if you do the research, you see that many happen.
Well, I believe that sometimes maybe someone missed the point and didn't try it. So I thought I try it.
Okay.
So I know that maybe next step, if I had money, I would, try to go to the board, the town, and we said, and to try to, look into it, because that's how I am. If something,
Easier to apply for repair.
yeah, it would be easier. Yeah.
I think the key to
Yeah.
for us is that we have to start at the top, and the first definition is it a structure? And if we're looking at something that is being built, whether it's stairs, a porch, a portico, railing, a fence, whatever it is, it becomes a structure. And once we have to look at that, then we have to look at everything else that falls out after that.
Correct.
So I think that was the bottom line of where we have to stand. I do believe, because this is on, that we still have to open the public hearing. So if there's nothing else from the board,
Motion to start the public hearing, Brian.
Seconded, Mike.
and if there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on it? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this? If there is no one to speak on this, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing, Brian.
Seconded, Olga.
And I'm going to defer to our land use. Assistant.
I'll add, there's no factors to go through. I
Right,
think it would just be, if the board, the consensus of the board is to uphold Joe's interpretation, essentially, then you would just need a motion to deny the request for the interpretation and uphold the determination of the building inspector based upon the additional definitions of setback and structure in the code.
So moved, Bob.
Seconded, Mike.
Roll call.
Michael Small,
Aye.
Bob Durayo,
Aye.
Olga Montes,
Aye.
Brian Grana,
Aye.
Chair Cheatham.
Aye.
So you're welcome to apply for the variance.
I have to. I'll see you next time in September or October. Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Did we not have to go variance that would?
Well, I don't think.
Variance is 350. This is 400. This was 400.
Correctly, I think you were proposing a setback of maybe 26 feet.
No, but we are not changing this set. I
No,
mean,
but what would be the setback of the stairs?
it's about 15, 7, very little, few feet, not even some few feet.
We've had a lot that we've done more than I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact number.
Can we apply the fee to the?
You don't have to say it's 30 next to September.
Yeah,
We won't be here. We.
yeah. No, I'm asking for the fee. Can we apply the fee to the variance?
I think, well, to answer, she has it there, we see 30 feet would be almost to the platform, so it's the stairs itself, but I'm guessing if she did the Calculation there, maybe it's 2060, 25.
Yeah,
So we'll be looking at a.
A 5-foot variance.
Yeah.
We'll see you in September.
okay, see you.
Next on our agenda is EBA 16-2023, 70 Dale Avenue, Rosa, and I am Michelli.
And Michelli, yep.
Okay. Good evening. Please state your name and address.
So I'm Lou DeMacy, I'm the architect, and this is Rosa.
I'm Rosalia, it's only 70 Dale Avenue.
Yeah.
You
Next application.
I said the VX.
did the right thing.
I fought with Joe a little bit, but yeah, we definitely had to go in front of get a variance for this one.
I'm
So
sorry,
what-
sir, could you
what-
just repeat your name again? I'm sorry.
Lou DeMacy.
Thank
She
you.
should have stayed to see how it's done.
I think she knows how it's done. She just on principle didn't want to do it.
Mhm.
So what we're looking to do is take down the existing porch and replace it in kind with the same size.
So no change.
No change. Just make it nicer.
So it's the area variance for front yard setback?
That's correct. Yeah, it's currently 1 foot 8, it's 1.81 feet. So it's a little less than 2 feet to the existing property line. So we're not changing that. We're just keeping it the same. Here's a picture to see the deck.
Thank you.
Around.
So it's,
It's a substantial variance, but we're not increasing it.
Slide that around.
so you need a 28.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
It's just rebuilding that porch.
Yeah.
Which means there was a variance granted prior.
Or it's existing, pre-existing non-conforming.
Right.
But for this, we have to approve a 28 foot.
Yeah, so to clarification to it is, if you have an existing structure, you're doing a repair to it. Right? It's not a new structure, you're not maintenance. But if you take down the structure and build a new structure, now you're subject to the setbacks of. So.
And the problem is with
It
this,
may be considered, well, we're rebuilding something in kind existing, but it would be similar to saying, I have a house here and then not complying with the zoning order, knock that one down and build a new one. If you don't get the setbacks, yeah, it's a new structure. So these are to basically address a brand new structure to it. This was kind of the conversation that I had with Mr. Massey, where if you came to me and said, I'm applying to change the column to support those, that's a repair to an existing structure. As opposed to, we're gonna take everything down and build it new, and now you have to.
and let me just clarify one thing. We tried to keep the existing structure, but it's too far gone to keep. So it needs to come down. It's unsafe.
So the structure we're referring to is the stairway on the right-hand side of the photograph there.
And the porch.
It's the whole porch.
And the whole
Yep.
thing is the whole.
So you gotta take the porch down and put an identical porch in its place.
That's correct.
And there's no work being done on the left-hand side of the structure where I said.
Left-hand side, no, that's just, yeah, it's gonna be the same exact size. Because it leads up to the door that's there. So you come up the staircase, you can't see the staircase in there, but I do have a picture of it.
It's the main entrance to that, right?
This is the main entrance. So there's a staircase on the side,
Right.
that's on the right-hand side, that leads up to the
Right.
porch.
Okay.
And then we'll go up through the porch and then to that front door. So it's a necessity to have the porch the same size.
Also to keep in mind, when a lot of these structures like this were built at the time, they were, the zoning regulations were different at that time. Whereas setbacks for the front yard may have been a lot less.
Right.
And they were conforming at the time. So it kind of puts the homeowners in a little bit of a constraint when they now have to rebuild it, because things don't last forever, so they have no choice but to.
And you're not affecting the right side yard,
I believe on your worksheet, you have the dimensions. I
Yeah.
believe on the side yard and both side yards.
Yeah, so the side yard on one side is 8 feet is required. We're 8.19, and took both of them together. Needs to be 20 and we're 24. So that does not change or is not affected.
It's the only variance is the
It's the
front
only
yard.
variance is the front yard.
Right.
And it's not any more non-conforming than the existing. It's the exact same as the existing.
Okay, because I know on here it says, front yard, existing condition just 1.81.
Mhm.
And the proposed, I see is no change, but we are asking us to,
It should say one the same, 1.81.
Right.
Variance request.
Well, it is no change. It's just for,
So
It's like no change. Is proposed.
Okay, so we actually should kind of clarify that there is no change, but it must remain within the footprint of the existing.
well,
conditions.
their plan shows it being the same
I
as
know,
what's
but I
existing.
always have an issue with if it goes 1/10 of an inch over, Joe will be back here in front of us.
Well, we always refer to the existing plans in the resolutions. So what's approved is what's shown on the plans.
Yeah. Well.
Well,
You have to
typically,
get an as-built survey.
Yeah, yeah.
again, so
Yeah.
Hopefully it's. Turn out to match.
typically with a situation like this, we do get a surveyor to stake it, so we're right at the right spot, so it's not gonna be any different.
Okay, I heard you say that.
It's on
So
record.
It's on record, yeah.
Just the right way to do it.
yes,
It's the only way.
Okay, if there's no other questions from the board, they have a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion. Seconded, Olga.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this? Is there anyone online that's?
Nobody there.
Hello. If there's no one to speak on this from the public, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close, Olga.
second part.
By unanimous consent, there's no objection, and the public hearing is now closed. Let us go through the area variance test.
All right, so the first factor the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced if the character of the neighborhood will be detrimental to nearby properties.
I would say no to that because they are actually improving the course. A little closer. I would say no to that. As they are actually redoing a porch that is in disrepair. And that it would actually enhance the neighborhood so that it keeps up with keeping the neighborhood in a in good standing. I believe that it would help the situation.
I agree.
Agreed.
Great.
I agree.
All right, the second factor is whether the benefit sought can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance.
I would actually say no to that as well, because even if they put just stairs to the second floor, it would still fall within the same lot line and they would still meet the same setbacks. So there is nothing that can be not, there's really nothing that they can do to get to the second floor.
Agreed.
I agree.
Agreed.
Okay, the third factor is whether the requested area variance is substantial.
Yes, but not determinative. I mean, it's what they were working with before. And we're just replacing it so that it's safer.
So in light of the lack of impact, it's not substantial. I'm looking at the big picture.
Yes.
I'm
Well, 'cause
trying.
Kyle's not here.
I'm trying to remember because he'd sit here
You're
and go,
trying to channel Kyle.
he'd be like, these words.
You didn't use the word property.
Yeah, exactly.
The verbiage.
I'm trying. I want to make him proud.
Oh,
Okay, the next factor is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so.
No,
I think that they will, I think that they will actually improve the neighborhood, so I don't stand by that. I think they grow the neighborhoods, which is-
It's more work, that's good.
There you go. Let's start the internet.
And then the final factor is whether the alleged difficulty is self-created.
No.
Again, no.
The house came with it.
It's the location.
It's the location of the house. It is
Yeah.
the property lot of the house.
It's every property on that street.
Yeah, you can see it on the left hand side, there is really, what else, other property, you can see driveways, don't put no action on that side.
And not to mention that the structure is falling apart, it needs to be repaired at some point, so.
Yes.
The homeowner is doing the responsible thing.
Yes.
With that, I think we've gone through the 5 factors, and I believe this application is approved.
Motion.
Motion for
I
that.
know.
Motion to approve, Holcomb.
Second file.
Bob Girayo. Taking a roll call.
Oh, yeah, aye.
Thank you.
Present.
Olga Montez,
Hi.
Brian Grano,
Aye.
Michael Spall, Chair Cheatham.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion granted. Happy building.
Thank you for your time.
Again, I'm going to again remind you that you will not be able to get a building permit until this is signed off on. So just.
Yep,
you
hang
know,
tight.
Hang tight.
Yep, I got it. Thank you.
Don't call the building department tomorrow.
No, I think I've got one more board. I have to go to the architecture.
Yeah, that's has to go to, yeah.
So, no problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Best of luck.
This is where I'm recused, so, okay.
Actually, no.
No?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, 16, yeah, okay. ZBA 2022, 36 Yale Avenue.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joel Greenberg. I'm the architect for the project. This is Joe Charbonneau, our attorney. As you will recall from the last meeting, one of the major items that was what the board wanted to have addressed was the parking situation. We hired David Smith, who's a planner and has a lot of experience in doing this. And we submitted a report, which I hope you've had a chance to review. And I think this really answers the question that the board had requested. Just to go over very briefly, Mr. Smith actually went out, I think, 3 or 4 times during the basically the hours where most of the cars would be parked for the evening. And as you can see from the report, each time we went out there was at least 3 or 4 parking spaces that were vacant, so that the additional cars, as you recall, that 2 of the apartments would have two cars in the garage in tandem, and the only additional would be 4 cars. So it appears that from the report that Mr. Smith wrote and actually went out in the field several times, at least 3 or 4 times, that there is parking available. And basically, I think that answers the question that the board seems to be most concerned about.
Can I ask a quick question? Are you proposing 4 parking spaces in the garage?
Yes, we talked about that the last couple of years.
Because the application wasn't amended to include tandem parking as a request, right?
So I went back and I watched the last meeting and there was substantial conversation with respect to tandem parking. I don't know whether the application was actually amended, but it should be in that respect because obviously the parking assessment was contingent upon a request for a variance regarding the tandem parking, and that was discussed.
Linda, I'm going to leave it to you. I'm just asking because then the request is really for tandem parking and then 4 off-street parking spaces as opposed to 6 off-street parking.
Well, it's still a parking variance for 6 spaces because you can only have, they can only provide 2 conforming spaces. But part of what they're doing to address that is providing 2 in tandem. And then
Be rented by the same tenant.
right as sort of mitigation for requiring 6.
But if that was consideration, they would still have to formally apply for tandem parking.
No, you're still granting a variance for 6 parking spaces.
Correct.
So I think I have a different question though. Are we looking for? Are we still looking for, and I guess, a 4-family? Are we looking for a 2-family?
They're still looking for a 4, so they need both the use variance for a 4-family and a parking variance for 6 parking spaces to support that 4-family.
That's correct.
So, but we had asked, we had indicated, you know, we've discussed the use variance, and if we get past the parking, we can go back to that. But we had pointed out that they also needed the parking variance, but they had never provided any support or gone through the factors, the 5 factors for the area variance for the parking. And obviously, without the parking variance, you don't even have to get to the use variance, because without parking variance, they can't have the 4 units.
Right.
Which I believe was the
So-
concern raised by the chair at the last meeting, and that's where Mr. Smith's report is the evidence to back up our assessment that it could, that Yale Avenue in fairly close proximity to the house would be able to support off-street parking.
And again, as the council said, even though we're asking for a 6-car variance, we only need actually 4, because again, the apartments will be rented for the 2 cars in tandem to a single tenant, and the other one also to a single tenant. So technically, even though we have to request the variance because tandem park is not permitted, but if we give each tenant the 2 cars in tandem, so there's no problem with cars backing in and out. And then basically, even though we're requiring the 6-car variance, technically we only need 4.
All right, so I guess I have another question as well. I see that the survey was conducted on a Thursday night, a Friday night, and a Tuesday. In the evening. And out of that, there was 4 spaces.
3 or 4.
3 or
3
4,
or 4.
correct.
Right.
3 one night, 4 the other. One conducted at 9 o'clock, the other conducted at 8:15. And obviously, the purpose of that was to make sure that folks would be home that lived on that block.
But none done on the weekend, none done.
There was no assessment done on the weekend.
Not in the evening, like, because some people get home between, like, after even 10
Well-
and 11. That's when you really get to see how many cars are with people sleeping there.
Well,
I think it's a different situation personally, at this time versus like 11 p.m. And I live not far, so.
yeah,
I also question not doing it on a weekend when a lot of people are home on the weekend.
Exactly.
Or in and out, it just.
Mr. Smith is fairly well known in this area with respect to these types of analysis. So we did not give him instructions to perform an inspection on the weekend. We relied on his expertise with respect to that. And I think his target was after work. But you're right. I mean, some people work and don't get home till 11 o'clock. I mean, it's certainly something that could be expounded upon.
And being a 2-family zone, that's quite a big ask to go to 4-family to begin with. So we just want to make sure this is the right decision for the community.
No, I
So-
understand that.
So if you were going to consider the parking variance, again, you'd have to go through the 5 factors that we've just discussed. And this really, goes to this issue about whether there's other parking available goes largely to the first factor of the effect on the community or the neighborhood. If it's already got a parking problem, if there's already an issue, is this going to exacerbate that and have a negative impact on the neighborhood of the community?
Well, just to expound upon what Brian said, many years ago, this was a four-family. It was a four-family, and because it became vacant, that's the only reason it lost its use. If it had remained occupied, you wouldn't be here. But the point I'm trying to bring out is that, let me just finish. The point I'm trying to bring out is that it was a four-family house at one time. And if you look up and down the street, you'll find that every house there is not a two-family house. They've all been pre-existing non-conforming, and that's why they didn't lose their use, because they were occupied.
But that still contributes to the fact that there's a lot of on-street parking. There's a lot of overcrowd. Like there are. So the question now before us is looking at this property and deciding if that use really does make sense to take it from a two-family, which it is zoned for, to a four-family, and then adding 8 cars in an area that's overcrowded. So that's what you're asking us.
No, we're only adding 4 cars because 4
You're
cars.
adding
No,
6.
We're adding 6 technically. Okay, so, but we have to be able to answer that. That's what you're asking of us.
We're asking, you're correct. We're asking for 6. If it was a two-family, we would be, those code says 4. So really, what's the difference is the 2 vehicles, right?
4.
Because if it was
4.
It would still be.
The difference is 4.
You're right,
The
correct.
difference
4.
is 4, right? So even if it was a two-family,
You'd still need a
you
variance.
still need a variance for
Yeah.
at least 2 cars. But looking at that and saying that we could give the variance for 2 cars in tandem would be a variance that we, could in fact look at that would take them off of the street. So like there are things that we look, if you kind of hear the bigger picture.
No, I understand that, but I mean, we're trying to better a building that we're confines of which we're stuck with. So that's what we're efforting.
I know the chair had mentioned dividing it into 2 units, like
Yeah.
2, right?
So, and I think the problem with that was there's the report by Mohammed Aziz, I forget his last name. The reconversion of the interior of a 100-year-old building or an 80-year-old building is going to be expensive, and it would likely not be able to bear out that cost within a reasonable period of time. Retrofitting that building to a 2-family, the costs associated with that.
But is that true? Because I know last time there was.
Well, that was the documentation.
So
The applicant already expressed in earlier meetings that the use variance was it's got to be based on financial reasons, which is one of the factors. And as such, that they said there was no market for such a large apartment. Should they go for a smaller?
But
So,
wasn't
but
there someone who like showed a report recently of like, there was someone who said there's this many studios, this many 1 bedrooms, this many 2 bedrooms. And then they said there wasn't a lot of larger units. Wouldn't you think if there wasn't there wasn't an amount of, or an inventory, there is a market for it?
Yeah.
The other, just a couple of other things. We understand the issue about the cost of conversion to 2 rather than 4. What I don't think we've seen is a comparison, because the building needs work, whether it's going to be a 4 or a 2. We all know that.
Correct.
And it needs pretty significant work to make it a 4, which is going to cost a lot of money. And it needs work to make it a 2. And I think what we, what's the sort of difference between the cost to make it a 2? Is it more than the cost to make it a 4?
Well, I think in the analysis, the financial analysis, we show that the cost would be the cost to convert it to 2, because then each apartment would have to have 2 floors. You'd have to, again,
But you're only doing 2 kitchens, not 4.
Staircases are very.
The staircases are the biggest thing.
Exactly.
Consider when this building was shut down, essentially, there were a large number of violations. A lot of them were due to maintenance issues there, such as the garage roof structure was in disrepair. A lot of windows were broken. There was issues with plumbing, electrical. So to bring the building up to code, there is gonna be extensive work to be done, whether it's a 2 or a 4. But in point to what Linda is bringing up is what hasn't been done, I guess, in the comparison is. We know there's gonna be a certain amount of money or cost for repairs as a 4-family regardless. And
Or a 2.
or a 2. So if you're gonna make a comparison and say, well, what's my expense to renovate the building as a 4, because there's gonna be work to be done. As opposed to a 2, you'd have to show there's this distinct big difference in cost for those differences. I don't know what they're going to be. But if you have to renovate 4 kitchens, because that's what's there now, or eliminate 2 kitchens and make it into only 2 kitchens, is there a big difference in cost?
And the issue of the cost of the internal stairs. I mean, we know there's a cost to doing internal stairs. I just, and maybe it's the way it's been presented. I don't know, for the board to grant a use variance, they need to really make sure they have all the proper information in the record. It's a very tough standard. I mean, I'm even looking at what we were given on the rents and the expenses. And we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. So you've used the same rent for a basically 2-floor, 4-bedroom as a single floor, 4-bedroom. Even though the unit would be much bigger, you've attributed the same amount of rent. You've also attributed the same amount of taxes, whether it's 2 or 4 units. If it's only 2 units, your taxes are likely to be lower. Same thing on water. Some of the other, it's the real estate broker, you're only renting 2, you're not renting 4. So I think this just needs a little refinement. I don't think that if the board were to make a decision to approve it based on this, I think that would be problematic because I don't think these numbers. Yeah, I don't think the board could act to approve based on the numbers as presented.
If the applicant is going to come back probably in September, then with a refinement with respect to the financial aspect, is it also the board's indication to expound upon the parking analysis? Because I mean, again, I know this board isn't doing this intentionally, and it's part of how this has been presented and parcel to you. But I just want to make sure that if we have 2 months to work with, I want to make sure when I come back, we're complete.
So I think you know what the law says for a use variance and an area variance. And I think you really need to look at what the law says and present, for each of the factors, sort of how the application can satisfy each of the factors. I think, and we've talked about a lot of this in the past. I think on the parking, you should just be aware there is a big concern in the village about parking in this neighborhood. It's a real concern. I think Maddie can
likely one of 10 blocks that is
that is
regularly.
Yeah, and the village board has been looking at it.
Yeah.
So I think it's.
So I think that
the parking variance, and that's why the parking variance is a real issue.
In terms of in terms of density or their violations, is the local PD writing double parking? I'm just curious as to what it is.
So I think, and again, and I'm not on the village board any longer, but when I was sitting there in that seat, there are certain neighborhoods that notoriously have parking issues.
Yeah.
And this is
one
of them.
I appreciate when you say parking issues, but I'm trying to further define that.
I can define some of it and help you. I mean, if you look on that street, parking is not permitted on one side of the street.
Right.
The street is narrow and it's 2-way.
It's about 22 feet. Yeah.
So those are concerns that they have. If you add in the number of driveways and so forth along that street, that takes away some parking spaces there. And I think that's part of what was expressed as the safety factor, because it is a 2-way street, and obviously more parking along the street creates a little bit of problem for through traffic. So I think that's a lot of the concerns the board addressed on this block, and to have more apartment units, which would create more parking on the street, it does affect how the traffic flows.
And it's concerned for emergency vehicles getting through.
Right. Congestion.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
So I think that I'm sure you hear, we're not trying to be difficult, we're trying to answer the questions.
Yep.
So that we can have an answer that makes sense at the end of the day.
Sure.
And yes, we keep sending you back for more information because.
That's okay. I just want to, given the period of time, I want to make sure that I've
Right.
answered.
And you're new to this application, so.
Well, a little bit. I missed a couple of meetings.
So one of the things, and I know that we've discussed this in the past, that the parking, if we don't address the parking, we can't address the rest of it.
Understood, the point that you made last.
And I
the
think
last
that's a key to us. So if we're still wrestling with, where do we sit? And I'm gonna say 6 cars.
Yeah.
And you're showing us on paper, there's maybe room for 3 or 4. We still have to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that that's the key to, where we're wrestling.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you.
It does.
Okay.
It
So
does.
that's why we're asking to look at this as a whole. And to come back with and, kind of like give us some more versus less. And the more like looking at all of it, can you say to us that we can do 2 4-bedroom apartments and, release some of the parking, if you give us if you could give us like this whole picture in 2 different ways, then we have something to look at.
You know, more comprehensive parking.
Yeah, I heard that loud and clear.
Okay, now the public hearing on this is still open. So, I don't know if there's anybody here in the audience to speak on this.
We need a motion to reopen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a motion to reopen. No.
Yes.
Oh, yes, we adjourned it. To reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
Second, Brian.
If there's no objection, the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience to speak on it? Is there anyone on Zoom to speak on it? If there is no one to speak on it, then may I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Seconded, Bob.
Okay, if there's no objection, the public hearing is now adjourned. May I have a motion to adjourn this application?
So moved, Bob.
Second, Brian.
Don't need a roll.
If there's no objection to adjourning this this application, the application is adjourned. You have until September.
Yeah, and the board, this matter's been before this board for a long time, and I think we'd really like to reach a conclusion on it.
Do you mind if I give you a call on this?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, and I would say that, I'm going to give you that, speak to our land use attorney, but,
Gotcha.
I
I appreciate your time.
Have a good rest of the summer.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your trip
Thank you.
to the
We'll see you
shore.
in September.
And I hope this.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Got your money right now. So he travels.
Thank you, John.
Next on our agenda is ZBA 27.
Enjoy your summer. We'll see you in
too.
September.
And I likewise.
2022 12 Maple Place. Milton Ferrara.
Good evening.
Good evening, John.
JB Hernandez, architect for the project. We have Bob Corky, attorney, and Milton Ferreira, which is the owner of the property. We were here before your board like a few months back. I don't know if you're familiar or remember the project. This is another, it's an existing 3-family in a T-zone that we're trying to convert into a 4-family. This was went out to there was a violation because there was construction done with a permit, which was rectified. Then we are here now. This is built It's a large house built in the 1870s. It's approximately 6,000 square feet in gross area. It has a detached garage and it has a large backyard which accommodates about 10 parking spaces. The last time the board had asked for more information on the hardships, and as Mr. Gorky, I think, provided some materials back in May, and that's what we're here to discuss.
We reviewed briefly the building and the conditions in the neighborhood the last time we were here. It's not anything particularly extraordinary. It's a house on Maple, which is in an area which is, I think, 100 feet from the village center, and it's across the street from Maple Housing. It's not a unique, isolated residential area. And Mr. Farrar's house itself, the house itself, as JB mentioned, is 6,000 square feet. It's one of the larger homes on Maple in that area of the village. It's sort of an interesting, I've seen this many times. A property owner or an individual decides, I'd like to invest in real estate. I'd like to invest in Ossining. And a property was available and it was sold foreclosure sale by the village. So I assume that the village does that. They believe it's to their benefit to get rid of the property, and the homeowner or the prospective homeowner, buyer, does it because they believe they can make a reasonable return. And Mr. Farrar's case, and he and his wife, they're not real estate developers. He works, he has a job, and he and his wife decided one of the things we can do for our retirement is maybe invest in real estate. I listen to the radio, you make money in real estate. They've learned that that's not exactly the truth, but it is something that they wanted to do. They wanted to develop. After they purchased the property, they spent significant money, borrowed money, to appreciate and fix it up internally. They have not changed the outside structure of the property. The work that has been done is inside. He has a building that's well maintained, well cared for. And he's indicated by the fact that his tenants stay there. They're happily there. The difficulty, and this is sort of a philosophical, legal, vague question, is this issue of return. I believe, Mr. Grenoff, you asked that question last time we were here. Did he cause this problem? Was this self-created? And you can look at that from many perspectives. From my perspective, anyway, you can get a certain return on 3 units, unless you're going to exploit people or do something crazy. You don't control costs. Do you know that those costs are going to change over time? Yes. But is it something that you're controlling or saying, I'm making this decision that I want to buy this property, I want to spend our savings, I want to spend our retirement, and I want to borrow money to bring an upgrade, and I want to invest in this community and improve a property? Is that a self-created situation? I don't know. I think people every day have to face the fact that they can't afford some things that are going on. This is just a microcosm of what goes on in America today. Some people can't afford eggs. I mean, did they create that? I mean, there are things that happen outside of our control, but it's our decision to go to the grocery store. Is that a self-created hardship? That's a philosophical question, I think. It's zoning philosophy 101, maybe. So that's a very, I think, a key issue here. The repairs or the changes to the building, will anybody know it? That it happened, 3 or 4 family going from 2 2s and a 1 to having an extra apartment there. Will that be something that will stigmatize or change the character of this neighborhood? I seriously doubt it. You know, you're 2 houses away from Route 9, you're across the street from a multiple family residence, you're up the road from Spring Street, and you're very close to the village center. Will it change anything? I don't know. An interesting aspect of this is that as of right, I believe, Joe will tell me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, he could put a 5-bedroom in there and it would be under the approved 3-family usage. Is that right? Now,
building permit.
Right, so that would be an allowable use.
Would it be, You just expand on the sides.
Yes, I see. Would it be here for a variance?
Have to meet building code, would have
Yes,
to.
assuming everything was done properly, Joe's inspectors went there and said, this is wonderful work.
Okay.
What would we have? We'd have a 5-bedroom apartment on Maple Street. I asked one of the respected realtors in Austin, George Kane, is that a good idea? There's no market for 5-bedroom apartments in real estate. I have a letter in my packet that I sent in. He actually gave the statistics on the usage of apartments.
Yeah.
Now, I've lived in Austin for 40 years. I know over time, one of the issues has been, particularly in those areas, how buildings are used. Are they families? Or are they buildings supporting many of the independent workers that are in Austin? And a concern is someone could rent from Mr. Farrar and then sub it out. And we would have a legal 5-bedroom, maybe with non-related family members being there. And that's been an issue, I believe, in this community for many, many years, about people having homes and having multiple people there, a number of pickup trucks outside, and people hanging around. He doesn't want that. What he wants to do is have 4 responsible families, the way he has 3 now, 4, and have that space utilized in that way. It would add to the safety of the building if he goes forward with this, because we need a sprinkler system, so that's a good thing for our fire people. And money-wise, it would help to continue what he believed he was doing, which is with investing in Ossining. Without, and I think adding a benefit to Ossining by having added what would be a reasonably demanded apartment because of the demand for housing in Ossining, which we can't deny. Everybody says that there's a need. So he's here saying, I'm going to add a unit. I think that helps. I think that helps the need for housing by creating a housing unit in a building that can accommodate it, that's put in pursuant to code if the variance is granted. There's plenty of parking. There are 10 spaces in a garage. The building external is not in any way going to be compromised. And we will see by doing that, that we're ensuring that you don't wind up with the situation that brought him there in the first place. A property being foreclosed and losing it. Okay, because it will be, it's not going to be his home run. He's not making 15%. He's going to be getting a reasonable return by the additional monies by the 4th rent. And that's what he's asking for. It's not extremely difficult. I think it's a straightforward request. And I believe it's within the discretion of the board, even applying the auto rules, which are not black letter. They do leave. You guys do have discretion, I think. So I think it's within the discretion of the board to do that.
Codified, it's now statutory. It's not applying auto anymore. It's actually in the village law.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just using colloquial. It's called the auto rules.
But it's no longer really the auto rules because it's actually in the statute.
I hate going in this digression on a thing like this.
So let's get back to the brass tacks. 3 existing units right now.
Yes, sir.
Which had a use variance for the 3rd unit in 1997. He bought it in a foreclosure sale in 97, I believe, and shortly thereafter received a use variance for the 3rd unit.
Okay, and the 3 units right now are located on the 1st floor of the building. I see in the 2nd floor of the building.
Yes.
And it's a basement apartment.
Yes.
And the basement apartment is a legal apartment.
Yes.
And where would this 4th bedroom or this 4th apartment come from?
It's a combination of it's a combination of the 2nd floor. Yeah, if you can.
It was part of the 2nd floor and
Part of the 2nd floor.
I was gonna ask if somebody could refresh my memory as to why we adjourned last time.
Because we needed more
We want more
information.
financials.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But, and then.
That's that. I'm sorry that Michael, then the page before kind of gives you a good oh, I'm sorry.
Too fast for you, sorry.
Next. A little bit down, there you go. The green, that's the second and attic or third floor. So you have the red is one apartment and the green is the fourth apartment. So you will come in at the second floor level, you have a kitchen, and then you have a bedroom and a recreation area on the top level.
So wait, where's the kitchen? That's just says one.
Okay, so that's a key area. So if you go down, there. So you see that's the main stairs. You will go up to. Oh,
I just wanted everyone to see existing the second floor.
So I have a. Can you scroll? I have a down. Oh, we need to see the top. That's where it is. That's where the apartment
that's the kitchen for that.
So the kitchen's on the second floor.
Second floor, but the rest of the apartment would be upstairs.
Yes.
So the only thing on that apartment, on that floor is the kitchen.
Yes.
So the third floor, and I have to ask this question, there's only one means of egress from the third floor is through the second floor?
Well, again, it's got to meet building.
Yes. There's
go to the next floor.
There is a common.
Gotta have an egress window.
Yeah, egress window, and there is a common.
So that's the third floor, right? So that's where you have the bedrooms.
And the egress.
I guess a playroom or living room.
And then no, the bedroom is on the other side of that. And you see the bubble area shows the egress window. There are two windows.
I guess what they're trying to say is that this particular apartment, which would be the fourth one, is encompassed with the kitchen being on the second floor.
Right.
And the rest of the entire apartment, the third floor.
Right.
So the only thing that's on the second floor that pertains to this apartment is the kitchen.
Yeah, right, and the entrance or connection to the common
You
area.
go down the stairs, but here you get into the kitchen.
Well, if there's a kitchen fire, how would they get out there?
There's
They're on
a
the
common
second
area.
floor and they just go out.
Yeah, there's a common area that is has 1 hour rating. So every multifamily building will have that.
It's not that the staircase goes straight into the kitchen, it goes into like the hallway area.
Right.
Right. Where the stairs are up to the floor.
What is currently on that top floor? Is that the attic or?
They started construction.
That was the attic that got converted into
Okay.
the apartment, which
They started this work. but
they did work with us, so the apartments already.
Okay.
Percent, right?
So the other alternate that Bob was saying to this, which is it doesn't make sense for him to do, will be to take that kitchen, convert it into another bedroom, and then maintain this bedroom as well. So then that becomes the third apartment becomes like a 5-bedroom apartment.
Well, it doesn't have to be. No one's saying he has to be. Could have
Right,
left
that's
it the
why
way it was.
That's why I was kind of confused, is I don't think we adjourned because we had an issue with, part of that final apartment being on the second floor. I think we just needed more clarity on your
Right.
applications
as
to what the plans were, and that includes its financials.
Yeah.
And the criteria, the criteria
Right.
for the use variance.
So and I think the biggest issue that we have is there was a use variance granted in the past for the third bedroom, for the third apartment. And now you're asking for a fourth apartment, which means you're asking for a use variance on top of a use variance in my brain. And what you're asking for is almost, like two apartments outside of what is normally granted for that area. So if it's a 2-bedroom or 2-family area, now you're asking for a 4-family, which to me means you're asking for 2 additional families. One was already granted, and now you're asking for an additional one. But now you're also asking for that additional one to go into the same house. But your financials, and I'm going to say the financials, I have a lot of questions because I don't see, even in here, I see what you paid for it. I see the cost of it, but the worth, and you can't tell me that right now that house is only worth $200,000, because I would probably look at you like you're like lost your.
There's no way.
There's no way.
There's no way.
I have a family and mine is worth
I got 900 square feet, there were more than that, so I got it, I got a one level.
You know, like, that's not in here. I had, you know, I had other questions about the financials that were given. You know, and maybe I may be wrong, but I do, you know, I would ask if you're telling me, you know, taxes and license fees, what does that entail? Like, what does that entail?
It's a
Like,
license fee.
you know, and, you know, is that the, you know, like, what are you being taxed on? Because if you're telling me you're being taxed on the 3 family, then that's fine. But I also know that all of the, that in the town that they did do, you know, they did go through and look at
Reval, yeah.
the reval. So what is that worth? I'm also looking at, you know, vehicle expenses. Well, I guess it's supposed to be utilities, and utilities for 3 apartments is that, and again, I did check, there are 4 meters, which means that there should be, the only thing that the utilities for electric should be what is the common area that you're paying for. Or is there already a meter for the, you know, for the, for the apartment that didn't exist already?
No, most likely, most likely.
Or water,
So,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
so, you know, like, what does this, like, it kind of just left an opening
Well-
to, what does this entail?
Well, the 4 meters, I think usually is 1 meter for the landlord, 3 meters for the apartments.
That,
It will be,
well,
it
I
will
did
be,
see 5, you're right, but
Right.
one I think was for
The garage.
a garage or something, maybe?
Yes,
So-
I have a
Barn on it, right?
It said barn
it's a
on it.
barn, three,
Yeah.
three, garage with a 2nd floor.
So
And-
is
and I
somebody
think-
living over the garage?
No.
no. And
I
I
think your question would be is when you say utilities, what is?
What is that?
What is
that
included under
utilities? What-
utilities?
Okay.
If each tenant has a meter, they're paying their own utilities, what utilities?
Paying their
So
own
when you
electric.
further
They're paying their own
clarification,
electric and gas, I would guess.
Yes,
So that when you say the utilities, they want to know what are you paying for that comes up to that total?
And then, and I think my other question has to be, at the end of the day, yes, you have a small profit margin, but there was a profit margin. Do we have to look at how much of a profit margin you're entitled to? Like, I don't know that, but I know that that's a question that, you know, we have to also take into account.
I guess one of the questions would be. You actually live at this, I guess.
no.
No,
she's
The
planning
plan,
to.
the plan was retire. I just turned 69, the 7th, and now haven't been able to start working. And the plan was get rid of my house. I live in Cortland, Maine, and move to one of the apartments.
Is that
That's the
still your,
plan.
is that still your plan?
Yes.
Is the 4th apartment for you or
No, actually, I would take over the first.
the
floor.
main floor?
I gotta think about eventually getting all in the stairs and all that.
Mhm, mhm.
So I would get rid of, I have to get rid of the people that live on the first floor to leave that apartment for myself.
Well, the reason why I would ask that, I guess I'm gonna get help from Linda on this, is when you say utilities, I don't think you can include the cost of utilities yourself.
that was my.
So if I lived in a single family home, I.
But
utilities,
I just wanted
if I lived in
to-
an
I don't
apartment,
believe, I spoke to the financial
Those aren't
providers, is that these were the expenses, his out of pocket, not his tenant's expenses. His out of pocket expenses to the operation of the building. That's what I was told. And I believe
Right,
that's
and
what-
we're asking for some clarification. on
Okay.
that.
Also, I just want to clarify that the statement is not that the house is worth 200 now, is that he paid in 1987,
I know, but there's nowhere in any of the
97.
paperwork,
87, 97?
97,
Okay,
but there's nowhere 87. At auction, he bought it for 87,000.
No, no, no.
$200,000.
But the
oh,
user-
87, he added 200,000 in cost.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, that I saw, but there's no one in here there's nowhere that says what it's worth today.
market?
The market value, that's an interesting question. I think it's a very good question, but it's an extremely interesting question. You invest in something and you're looking for return on your investment, not maybe the last when you sell it. That's a different aspect. For example, if he were to sell it and say you're right, it's worth $500,000. and some person said, I want to buy and invest in Austin. I'm going to buy a 3-family in Austin and pay $500,000 on Maple Avenue. What's going to happen?
Not gonna make any money.
It's not going to make any money. So I don't believe you can use that structure.
No, I didn't.
You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't work.
No, I understand. You
wasn't
shouldn't,
saying
yeah, I
I was
understand.
saying it
She was
because
looking
in
for-
your paperwork,
Yeah,
you said that he was only making $287,000.
No, that's what you had into it.
That, but you said that's all it was worth. That
Okay.
was the
No.
value
I said that's-
of.
that's what he
initial
has into
investment,
it.
But
initial,
you're
initial
saying that
investment.
the value of the property was to it.
I never said the value.
It's not the value.
I never
It's how
mentioned
much money
value.
you have in it.
That's right. He bought it for 87, spent 200.
Right.
His capital contribution to this project was 287. It may well be worth $500,000 today. And he may say, the heck with this, let me go sell it. But I would say then the next person coming in, can they rent it and make a profit if we're going to use this structure? What would the rent have to be to get any human being to come in here and spend that much money for 3 units on Maple Ave?
Right.
So I'm saying, and I take, and I understand council's thought on this, but I'm just saying that there has to be some discretion and looking at the reality of the situation that's going on. This black letter law, but I thought that was correct. We wouldn't have any quotes. Black letter law goes 2 ways. So it's an interpretation issue, in my opinion. I'm presenting to the board, as you folks have the authority to interpret. If you didn't, you wouldn't need you. Just give it A1 or 1A, whatever they call it, and put the thing in. But it is a matter of interpretation.
Can you confirm what each of the units are currently rented for?
Yeah, I think I have it there.
I think the financial showed it as one lump sum over 4 months.
Want to tell them what the units are? I don't have to go searching for them.
And that's for me, from my perspective, as I listen to everyone on both sides, is we're just asking for clarity. We're looking for itemized. It's not a matter of whether we think he's going to get a return or how much of a return he's entitled. We just want clarity,
Right.
specifics, and that's what we asked for last time.
Right, well, I thought.
And this is similar to what I said on the prior application, where if this board were going to approve the use variance, they need to make sure that they have
All the facts.
all the facts.
And we ask everyone for these financials. We ask everyone for these financials.
These are based on four families.
I mean,
the
the way,
actuals, without the information that I provided.
He has it as a 4-family now.
It's not rented.
Aaron's looking
No,
at
this is the income of the 3-family.
Yes, sir.
Did you provide what it would be if you made it a
Said it's not
4-family?
rented.
See the difference?
That's not what.
Is it rented now, the 4th floor?
It better not be rented.
No, it's not. No, I just wanted to be clear, Joe.
Bad enough that he started to work without a permit.
You got part of it there for us, but.
Yeah.
I can see that it's currently be a 3-family house and the apartments are rented for X dollars.
Yes,
You want to make it a 4-family.
yes,
house,
sir.
You could certainly.
Yes.
Provide, if you made it a 4-family house, what would be the rents on 4 apartments rather than 3?
Right.
So you can see what the increase in income is.
Thank you.
Which is something that is relevant.
in other words, another column.
What I did provide is from the Realtor Kane, George Kane,
I did, right.
a chart showing the rents and the various and of the different apartments on different addresses
Okay.
in the Ossining area.
Appreciate that.
to-
Okay, but the
and-
question that we have now on today for this particular building is,
Mhm.
how much rent per month per apartment are you getting? That was the first question I did hear. The second question is are you renting 3 apartments or 4 apartments? Because we understand the 4th apartment is already built. The third question is, I see heads nodding, but we're just asking these questions. Can you break down the chairs and, like some of the particulars on your expenses? Can you give us a little bit more information so that we know what we're working with? Can you also provide for us the difference in a financial statement of a loss or profit in 4 bedrooms versus 3? What does that look like? We don't have any of that information to go by. What
Okay.
you gave us is
Not what.
Okay, I understand that.
Okay, and I think, because if I have to look at this today, and I'm telling you right now, if this is what you want me to vote on, I have no problem. But you may not get the answer that you like, because I don't have the information, and I don't think we have enough information.
We don't have a clear
A
picture.
clear picture of what you're looking for.
Question.
So,
Did you say that the fourth apartment's already built?
and it is already built.
It's already built.
Is it,
Not the whole apartment.
It's not
They started.
So in other words, the rent on one of the apartments is based on it being a 4-unit apartment.
No.
No, but the second floor apartment has been reduced in size.
You made it small.
Right, yeah. So took 1 bedroom, you know, that was gonna be, so that's where the kitchen is gonna be.
Rent on the 3 units is based on 3 units out of 4 being rented. Because there are in fact 4 units right now.
no, there's a possible 4 units. There's not a completed approved 4 units.
So there are 3 completed units that are rented and a 4th unit that is not yet complete.
Matter of fact, right now, I only have 2 apartments rented. The second floor, it's been vacant for 3 months already. And I haven't done anything because I'm waiting on this decision. Because I cannot put somebody there and then have to make it into rented as a 2. And then I said, no, it's gonna be a 3 bedroom apartment, or so I'm waiting on this decision.
See all this information, I feel like we're having to reach in and pull it out from deep down inside.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be doing it.
But the reason for keeping that apartment vacant and waiting is because you started the work without permits.
No, I
So
understand
that's
that.
not a basis.
No, I just
for
want
this
you,
board.
because he's asking how many rent I got. And I told him that right
So
now.
those numbers that you submitted only based on 2 apartments or 3?
It's on 3.
The
So did
dates
you
are,
find the?
the dates of this were the financial president provided from January to April. That was after that he left it vacant. So from January to April, he was renting 3 apartments. And these are the expenses for those 3 apartments and the building.
What
for
are
those-
the rents?
Well, what were the?
My opinion
The
would be,
rental
is the way
income.
you presented it, saying, this is what we expect, this is our expenses, and this is our income from this date to this date. Is really not valid, because you're saying that's based off 2 rentals. So that's not what.
No,
No,
3.
It's 3.
So take this number divided by 4 and then divided by 3.
Very low.
No, wait.
You're getting
No.
rents of like,
Yeah.
4 months.
it's 4 months.
Then, yes.
Well,
And
you're
3
saying-
units.
But you're saying those 4 months, those are actuals, or those are
Yes.
which are
Those are the
But
actual.
she just said that he's only renting 2 apartments.
Now,
May, June. and-
Okay, so that's based
January
off of
to
3
April, he was renting 3.
That's
This
based
is
on
the-
3.
So you
Yes.
still haven't answered us what the rents are for each of the apartments,
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
because calculating,
Because divided by 4 and divided by 3 is about 1,200 per unit per month.
There you go. So.
Okay, so we need to provide it.
Yeah.
You need
Okay.
to have the accountant.
Give the detailed rental per unit.
that doesn't sound right.
Right, and that doesn't sound right to me. I mean, I could.
I don't think on that.
So-
Right.
What I want to see, if I may, is I would like to see. If you're renting 3 units, right, what's the income? If you're renting 4 units, what's the income? How does that affect expenses? So that income minus expenses will give us what you're actually gonna make to take home and live on.
Okay.
You see? And that, I'd like to see that so that I understand
It's not
How
what you're
you're
gonna
running
take
your
home to
business.
live on, it's what you're gonna take home from the property.
from the property.
Is
Yeah.
it also relevant to
So,
include the value of the home as a 3-family as opposed to what it would be valued as a 4? Because once you agree to say, here's your variance for it, and the owner was to sell it next month, you just increase the value of the home by maybe $100,000. So that should be a consideration, something that needs to be provided.
That's not the idea. The idea
It
to me
doesn't
is.
matter what
No,
you're
moving
going
to
to
the house.
It's your idea. We
Actually,
understand-
actually, if you're moving to the house, if you give me the 4 apartment, I'm only gonna have 3 rents because I've been living on the other apartment.
Right, but I would think you need to provide that documentation to tell what would be the assessed value as a 3-family to a 4-family, because it is actual value of equity to the home.
Right. And there's, the law sets forth 4 factors for the
Yes.
board to consider on a use variance. I know we've spent a lot of time on the financial.
But that's a big part of,
It is a big part of it, but there are 4 factors. And you're gonna need to address all 4. And it's not like an area variance where you don't have to satisfy them all for a use variance. You have to
for use
satisfy them
variance,
all.
we do have to satisfy them.
Correct.
So, once again. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Second, Brian.
Is there anybody on?
Online?
So there, if there's no one to speak on this, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Brian.
Adjourn.
Adjourn, I'm sorry, adjourn the public hearing.
So move, Brian.
Seconded, Olga.
If there's no objection, we will adjourn the public hearing. May I have a motion to adjourn this application?
So moved, Olga.
Second, Bob.
If there's no objection to adjourning this application, the application will be adjourned. We do not meet during the month of August, so we will see you in September. We would ask that all information be sent in a timely manner before when you put it together.
Yeah, and again, I think what you heard tonight is that if this board were to take a vote tonight, they don't feel that they have adequate information to grant the variance, but it has been on for a long time. So they don't want to have to keep adjourning it because they don't have adequate information. So we ask that you really try to get everything in for September so the board can move ahead on this.
I'm done at the end of the year. I'd like to get this done before that.
Oh, we're not waiting till the end of the year.
This is in a sense our way to help you, because if we did just move forward and vote tonight, it would probably not be favorable for you. And I do understand you are planning for your future. I do understand that you're looking at a picture, even though you're going to have 4 apartments. You're looking at a picture where today you have 3, and when you move in, you'll still only have 3.
Correct.
Not
But you
counting
won't have
yours.
living expenses.
But
It's there's a value to that.
Yeah.
right. And we also have to look at the present day. We cannot work on hypotheticals because you may tell us that's your plan, but your plans could change and the house would remain a 4. So we have to look at it always as a 4-unit place.
That's right. So just as you know, because there was a use variance given for the 3-family, that runs with the house. It never goes away. You can't, it's kind of codified into the house itself. If we grant a 4-family, then that also runs with the house. It does not run with you. It does not run with Mr. Corky. It doesn't run with me. It runs.
It stays with the house.
So that.
In other words, the actual real estate listing would say,
Right.
this is the approved 4-family house.
That's right. So we have to make sure that use is something that we can work with.
Okay.
Thank you. guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great summer.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Wait. Before.
Oh, yeah. No. You're good. You're good.
Okay. Before we adjourn, there are some adjourned matters, 16 Campwood, Snowden Avenue and Van Wyck Street.
32 Bell.
And 32 Bell. This is, I believe, the 3rd time 32 Bell has been adjourned.
Correct.
So if.
That's that gas station, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I was pointing at Mr. Hernandez to see if we could get him to.
Maybe come back.
That's all.
Oh, if 32 Bell is adjourned a 3rd time, then we have to discuss whether they would need to reapply. Because.
Well, it's not reapply, so you can take them off the agenda. And then when they do come back, they have to renotice.
Okay. So just know that this is, they have been.
We haven't heard anything.
That's why it was. He's gone.
Oh, same people.
Yeah.
Mr. Hernandez
That's another
is
use variance.
representing the client on that one.
Yes, it's an expansion of a non-conforming use
I see.
and area variances for
But
setbacks.
he didn't shrink the building.
just not enough.
Just the second floor.
Took the second floor off and expanded the first floor. Traded the
Oh
second.
my God,
floor
the
for
18
first
months
floor.
that I have been here because it was there before.
Okay, I'm sorry, may I have a motion to adjourn? I forgot. I'm
Motion to
sorry.
adjourn.
So, yeah, seconded Bob.
If there's no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you. See everyone in September.
Have a nice summer, everyone.
Everybody turn your mics off.
Thank you.
please.
Good night, Jamie.
Turn your mic off so the light.